Why does 3 million feel harder than 1 million? Is it team complexity or emotional weight?
Yeah, so I think 3 million a year can be more tricky than 1 million, because at 1 million, sometimes you can just kind of grit your way to getting to that number. The good news is that you've probably built something that can just be sold to get you to 3 million. The tricky part is that you may require some more teammates in place, right? If you got the media side of your business, maybe now you want to go and start scaling a personal brand, need a video editor, need someone to help you go and actually shoot that content, and you're not really sure how to put that team together to get to that next level. And similarly, you got to start kind of putting the systems and structure in place, because you're probably not just going to look to do it all alone. That said, you don't want to be building a business that's totally dependent on you all the time. And so while you can be in the weeds and scale something up to 1 million, it quickly becomes sort of unsustainable and something you maybe even come to dread if you keep working that way to try and now get to 3 million. And so you got to be building intentionally. What that means is, looking at the different aspects of your business. If you're building a sales team as an example, right at this stage, right? Because, maybe you've sold enough to get it to 1, but now you need to build a team on the sales side to get to 3 million. What that may involve is making sure you're doing daily sales meetings. You have projections for your sales team every single week with tight feedback loops around them, and that everyone on your sales team is sending end of day reports. Well, you may be watching this and you're like, damn, like what's all that stuff? How does that all work? And that's a whole art and science unto itself, right? And so oftentimes there's just some new stuff you got to kind of figure out and then systemize, and then make sure that you're monitoring things with tight feedback loops to ensure things scale the way you want them to versus going sideways. The core identity that you really need to shed as you're looking to get to, say, 3 million a year is you need to shed being the engine of your business and start adopting architect mode, right? Really seeing yourself as the designer of your business, your life, the systems inside of it, right? Versus just feeling like pure grit is going to get you to this next level. Okay. And so the architect identity, I think, is something that you can look at by monitoring, did I work on stuff this week that only I can do? Or was I working on stuff that I really should have been delegating to someone else on my team, right? Was I just busy and lost in meetings? Or was I actually working on the stuff that is the biggest needle moving tasks that are going to move my business forward, right? Essentially, what you want to make sure that you have time is, every single day to have 3 to 4 hours of founder flow to work on the stuff that only you can do, right? The stuff in your zone of brilliance, right? For me, that's stuff like developing offers, really dialing in copy, building exceptional content, and currently writing my book, which is coming out soon, okay? So that's the stuff for me that I know that if I got time for that every day, I'm likely in architect mode. On the other side of it though, if 7 p.m. rolls around, you're wrapping up your day, you look at your task list for the day, and you've hardly had time to get any of that stuff done, well, it's quite likely that you're just getting lost in the busyness of things and just stuck being the engine, okay? And so that's the big identity shift that needs to go down. Now, when I go and try to kind of make this shift, there's a lot of different resources that you can read to kind of get there. Obviously being a part of this channel and watching the stuff we have here is all about helping you become that architect. There's a great book called Systemology that's also great for helping build a business that runs without you. In addition to that, I'd strongly recommend listening to different things and making sure you're absorbing stuff from other legendary architects. So an example of this is Founders Podcast by David Senra. It's a podcast that features the titans of industry, the biggest high performers that have ever existed, whether it's Michelangelo or Michael Jordan or Tim Cook, Steve Jobs, Jensen Huang. You get the chance over about an hour and a half or 2 hours really to see some of the key decisions these folks have made in their lives and businesses to go and get to the level they're at. And I'm not talking about comparing, some $1 trillion CEO to where you're at now, but because he actually talks about the journey and the decisions they made along the way to get to where they're at, you're able to kind of pick up on some of those patterns and then apply them to how you're operating your business.